Good morning. This virtual public hearing conducted by the Committee on Economic Development, Agriculture, Maritime Transportation, Power and Energy Utilities, and Emergency Response is now called to order at 9:19 a.m. Notice of the hearing was disseminated to all local media outlets on November 25th of 2020, with the second notice provided on November 30th of 2020. Notice of the hearing was also made known on the Guam Legislature's website. This morning, the committee will hear testimony on Bill number 269-35 COR, an act to add Article 9, Chapter 77, Title 12 Guam Code Annotated, relative to the repair and rehabilitation of the Southern High School auditorium, introduced by Senator James C. Moylan. Now, before we proceed with hearing testimonies, I would like to provide the panel of participants with some general rules of conduct for this virtual public hearing. All participants must abide by the rules of conduct and quality assurance standards, including the chair will invite individuals who have signed up to testify. Individuals testifying shall first be recognized by the chair before speaking and shall state their name, title, and organization for record purposes. Please ensure that you are unmuted and that you are speaking clearly into your microphone. For group settings where more than one individual is present, please state your name before providing comment. From among the panel of senators, each member will be allowed to pose one question to an individual testifying for one round and be provided another round if necessary. Questions and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violations of this rule of conduct will result in removal from the meeting room by the host. I would like to begin first by recognizing my colleagues who are in attendance today, with Senator Kelly Marsh Taitano, Senator James Moylan, Senator Amanda Shelton, and Senator Mary Torres. Senator Torres is asked to be allowed to participate and sit in on the hearing, but she is having technical difficulties with the video on her end. So I have decided to allow her, of course, to sit in on the hearing just for everyone else to be aware that she's having technical difficulties with her video. All right, and now I'd like to hand it over to Senator Moylan to present his statements as the author on Bill number 269-35 COR before we proceed with discussions on the bill. Senator Moylan, you may begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to our participants, and thank you for my colleagues for joining us today as well. So Bill 269-35 would establish a public-private partnership to repair and renovate the Southern High School auditorium. The facility has been inoperable for years due to lack of workable air conditioning unit, which has been unfortunate since the facility has much to promise in perpetuating cultural activity, promoting the arts, and providing students in the Southern region the access to a multi-purpose facility. Under the provision of the legislation, private entities will be able to contribute funds to repair the air conditioning and address any molding issues in lieu of tax credits or unpledged business privilege tax. So Bill 269-35 allows entities to contribute up to $1 million and would authorize no more than $500,000 a year in tax credits. This would minimize the annual impact towards the government of Guam, while allowing the facility its repairs to commence. Contributing entities would also be authorized to place promotional pieces in the auditorium to be signified as donors. The tax credit program is similar to a model which was used to rehabilitate the Harmon Industrial Park roadway. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to the information to be shared today on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. And now we'll begin with receiving testimony from those who have signed up to provide testimony today. And I'll go in order of how everyone appears on the sign-in sheet. Beginning first with Ms. Maria Gutierrez, Chairperson of the Guam Education Board.
Good morning, John Hoffaday, Senator Clynton, Senator Moylan, Senator Amanda, Senator Kelly Marsh, Senator Torres. My name is Maria Atali Gutierrez. I am the chair of the Guam Education Board, and I will also be providing my testimony, oral testimony, as a citizen and a voter of the territory of Guam. Superintendent Fernandez will present his testimony, which is also concurred by the board. Thank you, Senator Moylan. Thank you, Primo, because, you know, I've really forgot about this bill. And when I researched the bill, my gosh, this was filed, you filed this January 13, 2020. 10 months later, congratulations that you're getting it heard. Southern High School is very dear to my heart, not only because I was on the Territory Board of Education when that school opened many years ago, cutting the ribbon, planting a fruit tree in the courtyard. Someone very dear to my heart treasured that school so much. I lost her 3 years ago. And if she was still alive, let me tell you, when this bill was introduced, she would have been on the back of all of you senators to get this bill heard. And Senator, thank you for your bill, but there's other issues, the other section there at Southern High School that is needed, that needs attention. Not only the auditorium, the gymnasium, the football field, and the swimming pool. And many of you may not know the history of why that school is built and is big. Many years ago, that Dodea has not didn't have a school, and it was built that big to accommodate the students and from the southern part. So of course, when Dodea opened, that the enrollment of Southern is not as much as in the northern or in the central. I hope that senators, and I hope, I wish you luck, Senator Moylan, that you'll be able to have this bill passed before December 31st, 2020. Let us remember that the Southern High School students deserve the attention of that school. And it's about time, and I hope that this bill will get passed and signed into law so we can move forward. As you know, the Department of Education budget cut is very difficult to really maintain a lot of our facilities. The superintendent has the spending priorities. So I am here to please move forward this bill before December 31st, 2020, because I hope that if it doesn't pass, it doesn't go through, that Senator Moylan do not give up and include all the other facility there, because I want to be able to fulfill the request that my sister, Anita Aftalik Manibusan, told me at her dying bed. Only one thing I ask of you, sister, take care of the Southern High School students. And Superintendent Fernandez knows this, because when he came first into as a superintendent, he had this parent that was on his back all the time, telling me, Mrs. G, there's this parent that will not keep me. Every day she would call me about Southern High School, not knowing who she is, who she was. I asked her, who is this parent? What's her name? Said, oh my gosh, this Anita Manibusan. I told him, you have something behind you that will not stop until you accomplish something. So Senator Clynton, I know you're from the South. Please, Senator Amanda, Senator Mars, I know, although you're not coming back, but I know as from the community, you continue to help our school, our children. Senator Torres, Prima, please, let's take care of the Southern High School, because that school needs this attention. Our children down there needs the auditorium, but also they need the gym. The air conditioned gym doesn't work. They need that swimming pool. They need that football field, and not to be, like a swarm when it rains. So I just ask all of you. So the superintendent's testimony is also in support. The board is in support. Thank you, Sidus Marcy. I have to go to an accreditation meeting, and I wish you all the best of luck. Happy holidays, and please take care of this bill. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez, for your testimony. Just for the record, this bill, I know you mentioned it was introduced in January. For whatever reason, it was only referred to my committee, and we looked it up to be sure on on October 21st of this year. I'm not sure what the holdup was in the referral process, but it only came to my committee October 21st. So we did as quickly as we could to find time to get it heard, and which is why we're having the hearing today. So
thank you for that. Sidus Marcy for that, Senator Clynton, because yes, I did do my research, and it's only on October 21st, 2020 that is referred. So senators, let's put politics aside and let's work what is good for our students in the public school system, Sidus Marcy.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Gutierrez. Yeah, I don't, I hear bills when they come in. I don't like to hold them. I like to hear them as soon as possible, which is why we're having it today. And hopefully we can get it wrapped up and have the committee report turned in as quickly as possible. And hopefully we can move this bill forward. So thank you again for your testimony. Now I'd like to go to the GITA CEO/Administrator, Ms. Melanie Mendiola.
Day and good morning to the Chair, Honorable Clynton Ridgell, Chairman on Committee on Economic Development, Agriculture, Maritime Transportation, Power, Energy, and Energy Utilities and Emergency Response. Hafaday, fellow members of the committee, and thank you for allowing the Guam Economic Development Authority to present on Bill 269-35. Overall, GITA sees the value in this legislation. Throughout the years, tax credit programs have been effectively used to provide much needed capital for vitally needed facilities and infrastructure throughout the island. Fostering public-private partnerships such as tax credit programs have the potential to enhance the quality of life of the people of Guam. The goal of Bill 269-35, if and when achieved, will do just that. Upon full review of 269-35, we have a few points that we'd like you and members of the committee to consider as the bill moves forward through the legislative process, which I will articulate. In Section 1 of the bill, Legislative Findings and Intent, it states that the act would allow the infusion of private dollars upfront, thus allowing the Department of Education to attain the funds to make the needed repairs at the earliest. This is not entirely accurate, as the manner in which GITA administers tax credit programs, according to existing rules and regs, does not require any funds to be provided upfront. Instead, the organization or agency that will benefit from the project or projects funded by tax credits secure quotations to procure goods and services. These goods and services are then paid directly by the company that wish to participate in the tax credit program. All documentation for such payments by companies is then provided to GITA by the organization or the agency for processing of tax credit certificates and memos. These tax credit certificates or memos are what companies use to access tax credits at the Department of Revenue and Taxation. It would be more accurate to state that tax credits allow companies to cover the approved costs of various government-sanctioned projects by providing them an avenue to offset their contributions against business privilege tax liabilities. Number two, Section 77902 establishes a priority list for the rehabilitation of the auditorium, namely, number one, repair of an air conditioner, number two, rehab associated with mold that has occurred as a result of lack of air conditioning. GITA suggests that item one include language to authorize the replacement of the air conditioner if deemed beyond repair. Additionally, we suggest that language be included that states that if any tax credits remain after satisfactorily completing items 1 and 2, that credits may be utilized to support other repair and rehabilitation projects at the auditorium. Without this language, additional legislation would be needed to authorize other repair or rehabilitation projects if desired. GITA suggests that the effective date of the bill should be changed from immediately upon enactment to after the approval of the designs for the renovation of their Southern High School auditorium. This will prevent the 2-year authorization period for tax credits in the legislation from lapsing due to the lack of a repair and rehab plan. Several other tax credit programs that GIDA administers involve a non-governmental organization, such as the Guam Football Association or the Guam Basketball Confederation. And as Senator Moylan had mentioned, the Harmon Industrial Park is also a Harmon Industrial Park Association. These organizations directly benefit from the projects that are supported with the tax credits. In the case of Bill 269, a government agency, namely the Guam Department of Education, is the direct beneficiary of the tax credit supported project. Language should be included in Bill 269 that enumerates GDOE's responsibilities with regard to the tax credit program. These may include ensuring that copies of all the required documents are submitted to GIDA, providing necessary reports and updates, and paying required annual fees as outlined in approved GIDA tax credit rules and regulations. I know that, and this is not in the letter, but just kind of as I get familiar with this legislation, I know that DOE also has a foundation. The foundation could also function as the facilitator of this project, I believe. Section 77908 states that the Guam Department of Education, in coordination with GIDA, shall have regulatory oversight and authority to approve the repair and rehab plan of the Southern High School auditorium. It should be made clear that GDOE is the owner of the property and the main beneficiary is responsible for all aspects of the repair and rehab plan, obtaining price quotations pursuant to applicable procurement rules, regs and laws, and program marketing. GIDA's sole role is to process tax credits, tax credit requests, and to ensure that such requests are in conformance with the law and applicable rules and regulations. Section 77908 should not include GIDA as we are not the beneficiary of the tax credit supported project. So just some, minor modifications. I don't think it's anything that's changing really the significance of the bill, or just some clerical types of things. Thank you again for allowing me to present testimony on Bill 269. GIDA hopes that you consider the points listed above as work continues on this piece of legislation. And I will be here should the body have any questions. All right, that's it. Thank you very much. Jesus Masi.
Thank you, Ms. Mendiola. Up next on the sign-in sheet to testify today is Mr. Michael Meno, Principal of Southern High School.
Good morning. Thank you, Chairman, for giving me this opportunity. I also would like to thank Senator Moylan for becoming our partner in this goal to help improve the opportunities for the end users here at Southern High School. Our chairwoman mentioned that we have one of the smallest populations, but that number might change if we can change the perspective of the community. We want students to come to Southern High from across the island. We also want to reference the board policy 351.4, which stems from public law, the College and Career Readiness Education Act. And that's to help us build a curriculum and a program at Southern High to prepare all the students for a college opportunity and a career opportunity. So one of the biggest disadvantages we have here in the South is we're disconnected geographically from the economy. Unlike JFK, GW, and the other schools that are right in the middle of it, we have those challenges for our students. So we're looking at Southern High becoming more of a community-based school. We have this wonderful auditorium that can benefit the whole island, as well as the international relations that we have with Japan, Korea, and the other islands. The auditorium is our biggest facility here at Southern High. You can see it from different parts of the South. It just draws your attention to it. So there's great potential in this facility as a positive force for community development. We've met with the Lieutenant Governor July of 2019 to look at the facilities. And what we wanted to do is to set up some kind of partnership where Southern High becomes a community facility, inclusive of the Fine Arts Auditorium. We do have a really robust program here at Southern High with Mr. Vince Rages and his cultural dance group. We have many partnerships with Japan schools coming to visit our school because they want to experience that culture that is present here at Southern High. A lot of our students here have talent outside of the curriculum, and these are extracurricular talents that we can leverage and produce and put in parallel with the curriculum. So when Senator Moylan visited our school, he came for a different project. Our music teacher and our students was able to reach into his interests. So we took him on a tour and we showed him the potential of Southern High. And he was able to see the auditorium and he was able to hear the students and the teachers talk about it. There's great potential. And as a positive force, this was going to be one of our opportunities to draw more students to Southern High so that we can have an increased population. We looked at that number. Students, their parents are working in the central and the north. So parents tend to take their children with them and they'll be enrolling in other schools. But if they can see Southern High for its great potential, they're gonna want to send their kids here. And that's what we want to work towards. We want to be that school that can produce what the community needs. And through this bill, that's one of the biggest stepping stones for us. If we can get this bill supported, get into law, and we understand from this point that the tax credit doesn't mean that we're giving these businesses a break. They're redirecting that funding to benefit the community. And with that, we did provide written testimony early with the development of the bill. We also sent it to your staff. So today, I'm only speaking for the community, but we want to make sure that when we speak for the community, it is for the whole island and not just Southern High. And I want to say thank you for giving us this opportunity. And we really would like for everyone to support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Meno. Up next is Assistant Southern High School Principal, Dr. Darlene Roberto.
Hi, everybody. I'm one of the assistant principals at Southern High School. In my 23-year career with the Department of Education, I began it at Southern High School as a science teacher. I also began my administrative career at Southern High School. So Southern High School is very near and dear to my heart, and I was very pleased when the superintendent reassigned me back to Southern High. As a brand new teacher in 1997, Southern High School, I had come home from college and I did not even know that Southern High School was being built. It was being built during the time I was in college. So when I had my first interview as a teacher there, I was in awe of the facility. It was beautiful. Everything was, it was so big. I felt like I wasn't even on Guam. And the Fine Arts Auditorium, the gym, the swimming pool, everything was in operation and it was beautiful. We had merged Inarahan High School and Ocean View High School into Southern High School. And just having a facility like that, it really brought everybody together. It was beautiful to see how it was in the past. I was there for 10 years, 7 years, and then I left. When I returned, I was very saddened to see a lot of the facilities had been is run down already and not usable for the students or for the community. So it was really sad to see such a gem go to waste. It's so big, like Mr. Meno said, and you could see it towering throughout the South. Our students and our teachers deserve that facility. When we asked the students, how would they feel if the auditorium was fixed? They said they feel so neglected sometimes because they're so far down south, and a lot of the attention is to their peers in the central and northern parts of Guam. They deserve it. They need this facility. Our teachers need it. We've got a lot of teachers that have now retired, and they are no longer part of our Southern High School faculty and staff. And it would be wonderful to see this facility get restored and become that gem again for the South and for the island. Our students they don't only think about themselves. And all of their testimonies that they've given to us, they're talking about their community. They're like, once it's restored, our parents and everybody, they don't have to go so far to watch plays or programs when we could have it just right at our school. And we need it. Please support this bill. This is an excellent opportunity for our alumni. We have a lot of alumni that are entrepreneurs and business people out in the community now. This is their chance to come back and support their school through this bill and applying for those tax credits. Thank you very much for this opportunity to provide this testimony. Dolphins forever.
All right. Go Dolphins. Thank you, Dr. Roberto. Next on the sign-in sheet is Mr. Erwin Manabusin, Assistant Principal, Southern High School. Is there a Mr. Erwin Manabusin present today to provide testimony?
I'm sorry, he's on military duty today.
Oh, no problem. No
Thank you.
problem. He can always submit written testimony via the email address, via our office email. Next is Miss Shauna Bomba, Assistant Principal, Southern High School.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ms. Shauna Bamba, and I'm one of the assistant principals of Southern High School. Going off from what Dr. Roberto said about our students here down south, they really focus on the community. She also stated that they don't think about themselves. They're thinking ahead. They're thinking of their brothers and sisters that will eventually come to Southern High School, their cousins, their nieces and nephews. And I was just going over the written testimonials for some of the students, and they feel if we have the auditorium fixed, a lot of our students will gain more confidence. They'll be able to show off their talents, not only in the cultural arts, but even like modern plays. We have a small community of students right now who want to perform like drama, and they're writing their own plays, but they want to showcase that talent at their school gym. So I am asking on behalf of Southern High, the students, the parents, and all the stakeholders to please consider helping us with our auditorium. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Dr. Eva Kanata, Assistant Principal, Southern High School. Please unmute.
Yes.
One more time. You might have accidentally double clicked it.
Okay.
There you go.
There we
Thank
go. Dr. Eva Kanata, Southern High School Assistant Principal. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. Southern High School is my home. It's the first school that I was officially a teacher at. I had been bumped from year to year as a limited term teacher, so I take great pride in being here at Southern High School. It's been my home for many years. As a teacher and then moving into assistant principal, I did see 1 year or a few years that the auditorium was up and running. And in that time, it was being utilized with great pride. It was the highlight of the school because the rest of the facilities were not functional. It was with great pride that it was used. Currently, it's down, of course. We have testimonials from teachers, input from teachers and students, but at least on the teacher side, it would be a way to boost morale and to work on the skills that the students take pride in. And these are skills related to the performing arts. One of the teachers also, or many of the teachers would like to focus on a way for students to showcase their talents in a way that would make them stand out here in the South, and being able to showcase their talents in the auditorium would be wonderful for the community as well. So I am very much in support of the bill, and I really hope that it does pass. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. John Fernandez, Superintendent, Guam Department of Education.
Hafaday, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. First of all, before I read my testimony, which I did submit, I just want to say thank you to our Southern High administrators and our administrative team for testifying on behalf of the school and their students. And I think I would echo their sentiments in the sense that, as we've gone through the ups and downs of trying to maintain Southern High School's facilities, we do know that the students feel a sense of pride in their facilities now, and of course, when it's down, they feel a sense of emptiness when we're unable to make the types of repairs needed to keep their facility going on a day-to-day basis. And I think the challenges we can talk about as we get into the testimony. I just want to let you know that we do echo them. I've had those conversations with the students. Very creative down at Southern High, a very diverse student body, more diverse than we think. And sometimes, that really gets showcased by a lot of the cultural, celebrations that they do down there in the courtyard. Definitely, we know that the Vince, the Netnun Gefpagu version of, in Southern High School's version of the IGP cultural dance group is really created a pipeline of cultural performers who can then go off and represent the island in different events. So, a lot to celebrate down there. But one of the challenges, of course, is the ongoing maintenance of the facility because it is so large and so immense. And, the vision that was behind it, just very difficult to sustain on a day-to-day basis. So I do have a member of our capital improvements team, who actually our leader of our capital improvements team, Mr. Randy Romero, who is also online and can be available for any questions about the facility itself, should there be any. In my testimony, let me just pull it up. Obviously grateful for the opportunity to talk about Bill 269, which Senator Moreland did discuss with me when he was considering the introduction of the bill, again, which would authorize up to $1 million in tax credits for the repair and rehabilitation of the Southern High School auditorium. And definitely a creative solution to allow for a private company to repair or replace the air conditioning system at the auditorium and then rehabilitate areas within the facility impacted by the current lack of air conditioning. So I'm very thankful that Ms. Mendiola was, on as representing GIDA to talk about the mechanics and ways to improve the bill so that it really maximizes the type of support that can be made available for these improvements. Now, I'm here to testify in support of the bill as a potential solution to one of many major facility issues in GDOE. We did estimate the cost at $1 million for the replacement of the air conditioning systems. I did want to clarify that the repair of the system is not, I guess, economically advisable at this point. It is an outdated chill water system that's presented many difficulties in maintaining, not just due to the malfunctioning of the system, but also the availability of vendors to be able to make timely repairs or replacements to parts and so forth. So it is a recommendation of our team to install multiple package units to cool that facility, which will also provide redundancy to ensure the continued cooling in the event one of the units temporarily needs repair or maintenance. In addition to the replacement of the system, it would also include replacement of the duct system that would be associated with these packaged units. So again, that cost of $1 million, I believe Senator Moylan, went along with that estimate, from our team as being sufficient to address, the work needed for the auditorium. Now, of course, because of our budget reductions and in light of many other maintenance needs across the school district, we don't currently have $1 million, sitting around to be able to dedicate to just one project. Of course, it's an important project, but when you have limited resources, you have $1 million, and you have all of these needs across the school district, the likelihood of dedicating all of the resources in one place is just very, it's very unrealistic. And we normally have to spread those resources around to try to address the health and safety needs across the district. So, And of course, in light of the overall borrowing limitations that face our government, in light of our tenuous revenue outlook, it doesn't look like the bond market necessarily will be able to, come to the rescue for our borrowing needs for facilities, especially competing with other important priorities that the government has, including the public hospital and other needs. So, with that, I just wanted to bring to your attention that I do support the bill. It's one of many capital improvement projects requiring attention. And, in addition to Southern High, we're currently tackling Simon Sanchez High School. We're in the design phase. We hope to complete that design phase and move towards construction of that facility, which would then be operated under a leaseback development financing arrangement that's already been authorized by the legislature. Obviously, this would then place 4 of our 6 high schools under a municipal lease arrangement. And clearly, these municipal leases have been ways to address some of the borrowing, challenges that we've had in terms of, being able to leverage general obligation, financing for those projects. At the same time, it's a good situation for the school system, because in addition to the rehabilitation or reconstruction of these facilities, it also includes the obligation for maintenance over the life of the agreement, which is usually 25 to 30 years. So, for our high schools, which are our largest schools, the most foot traffic, the most maintenance needs, 4 of 6 will be basically addressed by our municipal lease arrangements. And that really leaves the Southern High and GW as focal points for future renovation work. In addition to that, after we go through the high schools, the middle schools are also an area of significant need. We do have a Stimble Middle School, which is a lease school. We do have Untalon Middle School, which did undergo recent renovations back in, I believe, 2013. But of the 8 middle schools, there are 6 of them that are in need of really significant, rehabilitation and renovation. So we're talking about, issues around the structure around FB Leon Guerrero. People are familiar with Benavente Middle School, Agata Johnston, Inarahan Middle, Ocean View. If you've been to any of these schools, you can see that how over the years, there have been many attempts to keep these facilities running, but a lot of them now are showing dilapidated canopies. You're seeing the need for just broad renovations of public, the public spaces, the restrooms. And you see a lot of these temporary buildings that were put up temporarily, which have become permanent fixtures of the school because of the need for those continued, classroom spaces. So, from that vantage point, again, Southern High, GW at the high school level, pretty much 6 of our middle schools are really in need of rehabilitation. At the elementary school level, we're in much better situation. These are smaller schools, smaller communities. They're for the most part, structurally sound. I think the biggest needs we have at our elementary schools really have to do with retrofitting these schools to be able to, serve more of the current needs of our students, and maybe to upgrade plumbing and HVAC systems and so forth. So again, beyond Southern High School, there are a number of needs that also remain, and it's really we're really thankful for the Department of Interior, who's been able to not only do an analysis of our school system. In 2013, they identified $90 million in deferred maintenance to try to address, and we were able to use ARA funds to try to address as many of those items as we could at that time. But of course, every year that goes by, more maintenance that is unable to be funded gets deferred. So we are glad that they've been able to also support us with about $1 million a year to do some of the some of the essential projects like canopy repairs that we've been able to do, some of the civic, the civic engineering work, electrical upgrades. But again, those are not going to fully address the entirety of our needs. So I wanted to, of course, describe the challenge that we have, not just with Southern, but with these other projects. Unless we're able to identify a long-term stream of funding that we can dedicate to school facility improvements, we're doing this on a pay-as-you-go, a pay-as-you-go arrangement, where if we have the money in any appropriations that are available, then we'll have to use it, for that one project, or we'll have to look at creative solutions such as Bill 269, where we're able to have the private sector be the partner and then meet our needs using a tax credit mechanism that simply does the same thing but allows it to be done in a different way. So I do want to announce some good news. And again, as we think about Southern High and we think about creative solutions for Southern High, I just wanted to also put it out there that because these needs are across the school system, and because we know we can, where those needs are, and I said mostly at the secondary level for these non-lease schools, I think we are going to have opportunities to try to address not just Southern, but hopefully other schools down the road. One of those opportunities is that we were able to finally get the agreement of the U.S. Department of Interior, which we announced yesterday, just so that we could share that with you publicly, because we hadn't before. We just had initial conversations to this point. They have agreed to actually undertake the master facility planning needed, and that's been requested by the legislature to get a more detailed understanding and projection of where our facility needs are going to be as we look forward, in terms of how to allocate resources. So earlier in my tenure, I know that the legislature had asked for an updated facilities plan and had actually set aside or pledged, a revenue source to fund that as an outsourced project, but those funds never became available. So I think, we're glad that that USD, the Interior Department has stepped forward. And so we've begun those conversations, and over the next few months, that'll be a more public conversation with our community about the state of our facilities, about the demographics that we have in place and what those projections are for our demographics and for our enrollment, and also help us to prioritize how we might allocate resources to ensure that we address our facility needs, not just our health and safety needs, but also looking towards the future in terms of the types of schools we want to sustain and maintain for all of our kids. That master plan is set to be completed by November of next year. So, as we have this discussion, as we look at these solutions, I also just wanted to put it out there that we will be able to put a plan together to give everybody that overview of where those needs exist, and also think about, possible solutions. So I just wanted to share that with you as a recent news, and for the community to understand that, Southern High is important. We got many other needs, and in the several months, we'll be able to kind of share more about where we see those facility needs and how we might propose to address those the challenges that we have before us. So, if we could think ahead, and once that master facilities plan is near completion, we do want to engage the legislature more directly about how we might identify a funding stream to support some of the work that will be coming out from that planning process, so that we don't just have a plan to that we put on the shelf, but that we have a plan and hopefully some support to start tackling some of the items in that plan. So that'll help us as we go forward, not just to do these creative solutions on a project by project basis, but perhaps start to open the door to a bigger conversation about long-term investments. So sorry, Senator Ridgell, for kind of giving a broader picture. I just wanted the community to know, because we do come to the legislature, and our community is of course concerned about how we're going to fund these facility improvements, but these are high cost projects, and we need to be able to reasonably finance them even as we go through these tough economic times. So with the facilities plan underway, we do hope that the legislature will support this bill and see if we can make something happen to do the immediate repair at Southern High. As Mr. Meadows said, we are in continued conversations with the Lieutenant Governor about this idea of opening up and the sports facilities to public-private partnership, to help serve the southern areas and find ways to maintain, provide ongoing maintenance support for those facilities. So we're still working with, on that front. And then, the big opportunity that might be ahead is in the event that there is a significant stimulus, round of stimulus that might come our way. We do hope that, some of that money will be made available to address some of these facility issues as part of, the overall relief packages. So a lot of things we're keeping an eye on, but again, we do support this bill. And we saw the promise of this auditorium in my first years when it was reopened, and we were able to see our groups perform, the talent shows that came out of Southern High, the gate productions that were able to be held there. But unfortunately, once that chill water system gave up, and we couldn't get vendors to readily come in to make the repairs, we just realized that a full replacement at this point is needed to ensure that we can operate that facility. And then as I said, do so with multiple units, so that when one goes down, it's not the entire facility at once, which is really the issue that we're having with these chill water systems, as I'm sure you're aware. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, and Mr. Romero is here as well. Should you have any technical or detailed questions about the capital improvement projects at Southern High's facility. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. Next on the list is Mr. Randy Romero, Coordinator for Capital Improvement Projects of GDOE. Is Mr. Romero there?
Yes, hi. I'm just here to answer any questions that the legislator might have in regards to this bill. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. All right, we have exhausted the people who have signed up to testify, the list of people who signed up to testify today. So I'd like to go now to my colleagues and allow them the opportunity to ask some questions. I'd like to begin with Senator Kelly Marsh-Taitano. As I understand, she will be heading out soon, so I want to give her the opportunity to go first before she has to go to another
meeting. Yeah.
Meeting.
Seduce Masi, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the accommodation. I apologize that I have to leave to another meeting soon. And the testimony that was provided was all very, very helpful. It does give us that understanding of the larger landscape, because of course, understanding all of that is important as we look at the pieces, right, within all of it. And many good points were made. It's really good, I think, to hear about these facilities and maybe other GDOE facilities in the future, looking at them as community and shared facilities. And then that really opens up the door in many ways for shared responsibility of upkeep of the facilities. It helps our communities at that grassroots level have an additional place to play sports or carry out activities that are so healthy and important for keeping our youth and others, on this good path of making good choices for themselves by having productive things to do with their time. So I really think that that's an important direction to be going in. And I think it opens up the door also. The superintendent had mentioned some of this. It opens up the door to some of these funding sources like the Department of Interior, who let's face it, they have monies dedicated every single year for uses in territories. And so if we can be focusing them on some of our high needs, then I think that that's a win-win. So I wanted to make that point. And I really think we should also be looking at ways to leverage federal money. So looking at DOI is one way to do this. But I know that the University of Guam has talked about expanding their fine arts auditorium, and CAHA has talked about having a permanent cultural facility. And I mentioned those because they've likely been exploring the landscape of grant opportunities and federal monies that might be able to leverage some of these aspects for GDOE as well. And so I encourage, if maybe that's gone on already, some communication, but I encourage some continued communication with them as to where they're looking for monies for very similar needs. And maybe there's something that can be collaborative, or at least pointing each other in the right direction for how these sorts of things can be benefiting our community by finding these funds. Because, you know, we just know that our money is extremely limited. So if we can leverage those federal monies more often, all the better for all of us, I would say. So my main question here is, and again, it's been addressed to a certain degree, so I know it's been on people's minds, is if this goes through, we of course want to make sure that it's continuing to benefit the community. So is there the money for that, as far as you understand at this point, to be able to maintain it and be able to even pay for the electricity? Like, we want to make sure that we're figuring out all the parts to this puzzle, that it's something that's put into place, but then there's a maintenance plan, and there's the ability to pay for the maintenance and the ability to pay for the electricity. So I don't know if solar can fit in here at all, but maybe either the principal, the superintendent, or Romeo could weigh in on these.
You know, I can start. Before talking about Southern, I just want to mention regarding the community-based schools. That is definitely a direction we've been moving in. Maybe a few years ago, it might not have been a great conversation, because every time you open the schools up, it ends up requiring more staff time. You got to make sure we oversee the facility, secure it, you know, all these things. So but you know, during this pandemic situation, we talked about this notion of community learning centers, and we have a lot of schools out there who've already embraced it and want to be able to open the facilities up after hours, you know, with the necessary supports. I mean, primarily to support technology access in this environment, but we look at it as an ongoing partnership. And of course, with that, we'll have to discuss, you know, the resources there to maintain, you know, that community partnership. Right now, we're trying to pilot that and to see exactly if there is demand for, you know, and where that demand is. It may not be so prevalent in some communities, but in other villages, it might be heavy. So we're going to be this opportunity starting in January, when we open up the first facilities, to see how that goes. With regard to Southern High, it's a great question. I think fundamentally, the issue right now is that without that air conditioning system in place, we can't operate that facility safely at all. So, you know, the first priority is to ensure that we can actually, you know, utilize the facility. From an ongoing maintenance perspective, that is going to be a challenge. I think, you know, if there's a new AC unit in place that solves a lot of our, you know, our biggest issues that we've had. But again, this has been where we've talked about the possibilities of additional public-private partnerships relative to the operation and maintenance of the facility. So not just that, but also the sports facility. So that's the conversation we've been in, to see, you know, how realistic is it to have the interest and the support from, you know, private partners for both the gym, the fields, and the you know, the auditorium. So you know, it's not a slam dunk, but it definitely you know, the replacement of the air conditioning will go a long way towards addressing what were most of our primary maintenance issues at the auditorium in recent years.
Yeah, and if I could just ask, because, you know, I'm thinking, I'm trying to think of models, and you'll be more familiar with them than me, but, you know, I'm thinking that looking for these public-private partnerships so that let's say the repair happens, but as the repair is happening, that maybe the PTO could be heading up these partnerships. You know, companies, there are companies and individuals out there who care about making sure that culture and cultural activities and sports activities and other things that can happen in the auditorium happen. And so maybe they can be looking for, you know, annual donors or running a program that will assure a certain amount. Are there PTOs that do any of this sort of activity at this point?
Well, PTOs can participate in those types of activities. In this regard, I do think there may be a need for how do you say it? It's a little bit more complex in this situation, because what you're really looking at doing is basically entering into an operating agreement with another partner. I mean, there has to be an exchange of you know, for that type of support. So I would envision it would be an operating agreement with another partner. So you would basically share the space with another partner who was able to program that space for whatever theater productions, cultural productions, obviously giving the school priority in terms of use. And in exchange for that operating agreement, you know, there would be an expectation of a contribution towards maintenance. So that would be the type of agreement that would need to be put in place. So I think it would go beyond, you know, what would be normal fundraising, you know, annual fundraising activities by the school, and be more of a long-term type of agreement with you know, an organization that has the means to make that kind of commitment. Now, obviously, I'll tell you though that in the past couple of years, those kinds of discussions, when we had those kind of discussions, obviously the partners looked and said, well, what would be the first thing we need to do? And of course, the first thing we need to do is replace the air conditioning system. So, you know, already that big ticket item was, you know, almost a deal killer. If you're saying, hey, you know, join us, but the first thing we're going to be needing to do probably in the next few years is replace the entire air conditioning system. That's not something that becomes an immediate, you know, feasible project when you're just getting off the ground, versus just some type of ongoing maintenance, you know, preventive maintenance type of program. So, you know, if we were able to make that investment, you know, with your support in that basic, you know, air conditioning sort of, you know, replacement, that might enable, you know, these other discussions about what we would hope would be lower cost, you know, preventative and ongoing maintenance, versus making those capital, you know, investments that are, you know, higher price tags.
Right, and you bring up a good point. You know, I agree with you. For the more complex parts, having the school needs to be heading up that, or the school system, and maybe there are partnerships that can happen with mayors and other things. And I was thinking, I should have clarified better, but you helped me clarify. So I was thinking of maybe just developing some patrons, you know, more in the supplemental and supportive role, but that might be something that PTO could do along with the work of others. But so with, and I'm trying to move on, but how old was this system? Was there a maintenance system, you know, a maintenance plan in place, and then it's just been so many years that there was no saving it? And is there a requirement in GOD that if something new like this is put into place, that there is a requirement that there will be a maintenance plan that everybody can see and understand and know how to try to support?
I think that the main challenge for this project, and, you know, in all candidness, is that when the facility was rehabilitated in 2013, there had been, I guess in 2012 was when the agreements were finalized for the rehabilitation. At that point, there had been a determination, you know, prior to my coming on board to facilitate the rehabilitation. There had been a determination that the air conditioning system was workable and would be able to last, or at least didn't need immediate replacement. So and of course there was I'm sure there was an attempt to also share the resources to other schools. So when the scope of work was put in place for the Southern High, it did not include the full replacement of the chill water system that was there already. So what you had was basically an existing chill water system that now has gone beyond its economic lifespan at this point. We've had challenges of the chill water systems over the years. We had one at Tamuning. Hopefully we've all forgotten it, but there was a time and place where we had to shut down the school because the chill water systems were just difficult to maintain. Once they crashed, hard to get parts timely on island. And if they crashed, the entire wing or the entire school would be without aircon. It wasn't sort of a room by room thing, which is, something you can deal with. But when the entire school, goes down, that's a problem. So we have those chill water systems. We've replaced them at Tamuning. They're still in operation at Southern High at both the gym and the auditorium. But it's pretty clear that type of system is difficult to rely on, because once it goes down, it's hard to bring back up and sustain operations. I think as part of the maintenance, because of the way and because of the system, it required the vendor to bring in like experts from Hawaii to fly in, and we could not always demand the presence of that vendor. The vendor would go to try to get their the manufacturer representative or the person to come in and do the assessment and repairs. Typically they would line their work up with the other work they would be doing on other in other business here on Guam. And so we would wait for them to be available, and then if those things changed and if they were delayed, we just didn't have control over the availability of their experts to come in and do the specialized work needed to get those units up and running. So it's been real frustrating to try to maintain those types of units and keep the school operating. It was one thing if it goes down and we just shut everything down and wait till it's repaired, but when you shut it down while classes are ongoing and are located in those facilities, it's really troublesome to wait every additional day that goes by without the air conditioning being fixed.
Yeah, and it sounds like there are many of these kinds of issues with living in the location that we do. Our climate just makes it harder to maintain just about everything, but also making sure that we have the experts here. So as this goes forward, I'm sure one of your considerations would be this time, or maybe it was even last time, but to try to invest in a system where the expertise is here, because it sounds like having the expertise being flown in from Hawaii was a real problem, and even the devices themselves maybe didn't operate well in our climate. Sorry.
The redundancy also looking at multiple units servicing a facility, so that if you do get one that goes down, it's not the entire system. So.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that you have thought of it in that way, because that's real important. I can see the value in that, so I think that's a really good strategic move forward. So if this repair happens, or I should say when, it's going to happen, it's just when. So is there something within GDOE that just assures us all that the maintenance plan is part and parcel of what happens?
We can, I guess, if you're asking for a maintenance plan for what it would take, really it would be much different with the planned design and of how we would like to see that. And so again, with multiple units, package units, which we do in many other schools, we do believe that the vendors are on island, and we can provide you with the anticipated maintenance plan. It used to be that we did all the in-house maintenance, ourselves at one point in time, but right now it mostly is outsourced. So we do have those types of schedules already set up for our other units throughout the school system, where we can provide you that information as needed. Yeah. And of course,
Okay,
we would incorporate that into we would incorporate that into the budget information that we provide yearly as to what that estimate would be.
Okay, excellent. So thank you very much for accommodating that line of questioning, and Seduas Masi, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to ask those questions before I leave. Have a good rest of your day, everyone. And again, thank you so much for your very, very thoughtful testimony and strategic thinking in how to move forward.
Thank you, Senator Marsh. Senator Moylan.
I'm fine there, Mr. Chairman. I'll save myself for the closing remarks. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Just wanted to check. Senator Shelton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Hafa everyone. Thank you for the testimony today on the bill. I recall a couple of years ago, several years ago, maybe in 2017 or 2016, when the air conditioning was repaired, and I attended several events there, the cultural dancing showcase, I believe a play one evening, and it was really nice to be able to just go down the street from my house and attend an event like that. And I can see how appealing that is for all of our residents of the South, and for it to be really a place in our community that's a positive place for gathering and to have these kind of events. So I really appreciate the effort with this bill. Mr. Superintendent and the administration of Southern High School, Hafa, I wanted to ask, aside from the funding issues that you've faced to make these kind of repairs to the auditorium, has there been any other kind of issue that you've faced? Because we were able to make the repair once before, but what other things have been an impediment to these kind of repairs?
So I'll go ahead and start, and then Mr. Meadows, feel free to jump in. I would just say, like I mentioned before, not just at Southern, but anywhere where there's a major capital improvement project that needs to get addressed, not having the available resources in your annual appropriation to fund the project, that's the biggest challenge. So it's otherwise we make the Band-Aid repairs within our current operations and try to make it to next year, but that adds up, in our deferred maintenance issues that you end up seeing down the road. But the other issues I would say at Southern High is we really are trying. I mean, the issue with Southern High is that it's larger. It's a massive facility. So in order to maintain that massive facility, we have to concentrate our resources as much as possible, in the areas as much as possible to maintain the school for our students. And we are actually looking at how to maximize utilization of the space with other partners. And those, for instance, we did move the JP Torres Success Academy school from where it is, near the mayor's office in Santa Rita. We have moved them into a building on Southern's campus to try to make full use of that facility. We continue to work with GCC. I had done a walkthrough with Dr. Okada on the utilization of a wing at Southern High for potential night school purposes or other purposes that they might be interested in. So we had done that. Nothing's come to fruition yet, but of course, as we look at the potential for Southern High to serve some of the training programs, that might be needed. We talked about ship repair areas and other areas there. So, I think with Dr. Okada coming on our board, so my secret plan has been to leverage her facility experience at GCC to our benefit over at, here in GDOE, because she has done a lot of work with, financing, USDA financing. I know Gita's been doing that work too, trying to figure out creative ways to address facilities. And one of our discussions that we, will hopefully pick up is whether there are opportunities to work with UOG and GCC to help occupy some of that space, and therefore and allow us to concentrate our resources more effectively on the areas serving our students directly, rather than trying to keep that whole facility running, with the same budget. So, and then of course I mentioned Lieutenant Governor's discussions around how to perhaps create a community use and operational plan for the athletic facilities there to help offset some of the maintenance costs, and again open it up for broader use. And I see Mr. Meno might be able to add or clarify some of the things I might have said in error. So, Mr. Meno.
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Senator Shelton, for also visiting us and getting to see firsthand what the school is like. I just wanted to add on the National Institute for Health. They do offer fellowships, and they have this visit to our school annually. One of our students got selected for the fellowship, but because of the pandemic, her opportunity was moved, I believe, to 2021. She's now a senior with us. So she got selected as a junior. Now with the National Institute for Health, they want to help us build our laboratories. So we have one wing, the 5000s, and that's where we house the Freshman Academy, all of the second floor, and certain wings, certain parts of the wings is for laboratories. So they want to provide us with all of the equipment and accessories we need for the labs to promote this program. But on my side, I need to get those laboratories, the sinks, the piping, the electrical parts of it up and running to support that. So one of our teachers right now, he went through that fellowship and he was able to speak to our students regarding the benefits of it. So they actually work with scientists, they get paid to do it, and they present a project when they're done. So that's a huge opportunity again for Southern High. And right now, when we work on our budget, we want to be very good stewards about the economy, right, and how we impact it as a school. So we work really hard to get our budget to be more something that can support the curriculum, because the rest of the facilities, right, is something that's very difficult for us to consider in our estimates. But when the facility supports the curriculum, that's when I really want to push for the budget to, when we put into the budget, the estimate to support that. So the auditorium was one aspect that we wanted to do one year. The gym is something that we want to do the next year. But at the same time, the laboratories, those are what we want to hit right away. And thank you for asking.
I see. Thank you very much for that. That sounds like an excellent opportunity for your students. And I know that when I visited the school earlier in the term, there was also discussion about the potential for one of the wings at the school to be a satellite location for the community college, to open up the campus to the broader Southern community, to allow them to take classes from the Guam Community College. So there's a lot of potential for that campus that I can see, and for our Southern residents. Thank you very much for that.
Right, and I guess the whole point is, if you have $100 and you have to take care of this campus, but you can now offload some of those costs to partners, then you can concentrate, your resources on those essential parts of your campus, and help share the costs with partners who will utilize other parts. Otherwise, if I task Mr. Meno to make sure that you let us know that all the air conditionings are up, all the lighting is done, even if they're not making full use of the facility, we can't just allow a whole wing to go down and become a nuisance or become a danger. So there's a maintenance requirement that we have anyways, even if we can't, even if we're not equipped to fully maximize utilization of the campus.
Yes, I see.
May I add one more thing?
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
All right,
Meno.
so we're actually going to be a community learning center for the students for the Southern region. So we're creating hotspots, and we're providing devices for students within the community. Any part of the South can actually come here. So Southern High is ideal for that kind of infrastructure. And we also worked with GPA. They were able to help us get our outside lighting in the hallways fixed. So the next step is to get the lighting in the parking lot fixed. So there's really great potential for Southern High and the community.
Absolutely.
With that community learning center effort, again, like I mentioned, community-based activities, we also are in discussions with the governor's office about school-based health. And I know that's been a priority for some of the senators as well, looking at ways that schools might be able to help with some of the preventative health, the immunizations, and other types of services that can be provided at the school sites where our students are. So we are looking to find ways to pilot that type of arrangement, and with the Medicaid reimbursement rates, being changed to our benefit, that's opened up those opportunities. So that is a shared priority. But I guess the point I want to make is, to have, if we operate within the same budget without the additional resources, but we start opening up for more community use, it becomes tough because we still have to staff and maintain and pay the water bills and power bills. So it has to go hand in hand. I think that as we think about community use, are we going to be able to, provide the resources necessary to support that? And it should be able to work because, basically, these services are being provided just in a different location. But if it doesn't come hand in hand, it's going to be an issue that will be hard to sustain, or, an effort that'll be hard to sustain, because I know that the schools themselves will be tasked with, are we going to be able to staff, the after hours, supervision of the facility? Is there someone who's going to open it up on weekends? Are we going to charge power and utilities on the weekends to these other groups? There's so many opportunities and potential, but that funding issue also has to be considered as part of that.
Sure. Many considerations to be made with all of these exciting projects to come. Thank you very much for that. And Mr. Meno, I'd like to request from you, if you have it available, the estimates for all of these major projects that were mentioned today, such as the laboratory in the 5,000 wing, and maybe the gymnasium and the football field as well, so we can see if there's any possibility of incorporating that into this bill. Not to expand your plan here, Senator Moylan, but just a thought for us to look at before we get to session. So if you could provide that to the committee, Mr. Meno, I would really appreciate it.
Just one note on that NIH thing. I don't know if Mr. Meno, I know you mentioned it, but the way I look at it is that there is a promise and commitment to provide, surplus NIH equipment to the lab. It's just what they need is the basic infrastructure and the space and, adequate lighting and water and so forth to support it. But in exchange for that, I mean, they're willing to provide the equipment for the kids, the educational component. So that's really exciting. So that kind of investment will give us a return immediately in the sense that they're going to be able to, help us with our needs as well in the classroom.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you for that information. And thank you everyone again for your testimony today.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Senator Torres?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Southern High is actually within view of my home, and it is one of the places that I drive by every time I go into the village to the local stores. I want to thank you for the testimony today. I noticed, Melanie, that you brought up a lot of technical corrections that need to be made to the bill, which are things that I also spotted, so I appreciate that. Maria Gutierrez, you mentioned, the many needs of the school, and what I'm concerned about is, where do we prioritize projects and renovations that have the greatest effect, right? That will most benefit the greatest number of students. I think that those are always things to consider whenever we have priority projects like this one. And Mr. Michael Meno, you brought up some very good points about how we have to address this as being the largest facility, and it also has the potential for community development. What I found very curious, though, is that as we look at these structures, and it all weaves into everyone's concerns here today, as we look at the projects, how do we ensure that the renovations that we're going to make really have the greatest impact? And where I'm going with this is, you know, these sorts of projects always have to be measured, right? There's so many QC bills that have been introduced and are passing. There's a lot of potential for decreased revenues because of the offset in tax credits. And so when we look at a project like this, the renovation of the auditorium, what I'm looking for is what is the corresponding plan so that this is truly an economic development plan. In other words, will the renovations to this facility also then have the potential to generate additional financing for the Department of Education? And that's kind of my interest here is will this then, because if you're going to put money in, like with other projects that we did, like at say Harmon, for example, the idea there was that, you know, the condition of the roads was hampering business and it was costing people too much money in repairs of vehicles in the facility in and out of the area. So with this auditorium, if it can truly be as Mr. Meno was describing, if it can be an opportunity to restore a facility that can then be used as a facility that can generate funds for the Department of Education, either through rental or through activities that have concessions or the like, is that part of the general business model then that would be anticipated? Because there's a lot of discussion about, well, we get it up and going, does it just fall into another rut where it's not maintained and it goes? Is this just throwing money into a pit, or is this restoring a facility that is then going to have not only a benefit to the students, a benefit to the community, but the opportunity to generate revenues once it's repaired? Can anyone just comment on that aspect? Because it is, after all, going to be lost revenues to the general fund in taxes. So what is the corresponding economic gain to the island as a result of that?
If I could venture a response, because that's a big policy question, and obviously, as legislators, you have a shot at determining how those policies are made. But I would argue first that we look at this in terms of of a policy around investing in school facilities as an essential part of our government. So we anticipate public education is a need, and public school facilities are going to be in need for the next 30 to 50 years, that there ought to be funds available. And that's my argument in general, that there ought to be dedicated funding to ensure that our schools are able to be operated and maintained for that period of time. So I don't necessarily see this as an economic development project primarily. I mean, I think there is a lot of argument that could be made about ensuring that students occupying a school facility are able to, not just, operationally, but also symbolically see that their school is able to be supported and maintained. Now, having said that, your comments about economic development are important because of the fact that this facility was built in such a massive scale that would make sense to work on ensuring that there's ongoing support for the auditorium. The challenge there is that I think that it's something that we would have to work in close partnership with you and a lot of our other agencies. I mean, I could see, there's so many discussions that we have that have not really come to fruition. For instance, does Southern Auditorium fit into the Guam Visitor Bureau's plans for how we might encourage cultural tourism? Is it part of CAHA's consideration over how we might feature the arts? I mean, there's a lot of ongoing discussions that are out there. The facility is available. How we work together to ensure that we prioritize its use amongst our fellow government agencies and also our nonprofit partners. I think that's the challenge. Because we have been, we can do our part inside DOE. We can direct all of our gate productions to do it out of Southern High. That's the easy part. But for an ongoing program, we have to not only convince, people that this is where you want to have your performance, but it would help to have that same, level of prioritization. I have to tell you that sometimes we have these conversations with people who we would think would be natural partners, and we still get that response of, well, it's too far. And so we're saying, well, it's Guam, we're not that large. But at the same time, if people say, well, it's too far to go from Tumon to Southern High, then we have to kind of work with our partners to figure out how to make that trip, worthwhile for tourists, if we're looking at tourists, or for our local, visitors from Central and up north. So that's, the best way I can expand it. But I would maybe not encourage that we look at this solely as economic development project, because although I know tax credit policies can be used for those purposes, I do want to acknowledge that the tax credit proposal being put forth here really is almost being done to offset what would be a normal way of financing our government facilities, which would be through more traditional borrowing means. So we do appreciate the creative solution, because I do agree that when you go to a school and you have half your facility kind of, in disrepair or off limits, it does become this morale issue that affects the environment at the school.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm not against the project. I was just bringing up the point because there are so many concerns about, well, what happens next? The idea that how do you pick and choose if you've got 6 high schools that are in dire need of renovation? You've got Southern, Simon Sanchez that is yet to be rebuilt. These are the practical things, and it almost puts a who's first in line for attention debate. I mean that this is really what it boils down to. And so, but I only brought it up because Mr. Meno actually painted a picture that showed the possibility of developing along with this a sustainability model that included not only the benefit of the student body at Southern High, perhaps other Southern schools, high schools in general, the visitor industry, the student exchange programs, cultural programs. So that is why I went down that road. But it clearly, I think the potential for a financial generating model exists with this, but it has to be woven into the granting of such a tax credit, I believe.
No, Senator, I didn't want to make it seem like you didn't support it. Those are actually very good questions, and actually, I just raised it because I wanted to kind of maybe share that that's the exact challenge that we have within DOE when we have limited resources. Sometimes our Southern schools, because they don't have the larger enrollments, don't get that immediate attention when you look at it from that perspective, because you're absolutely right. Most of our students are up north. And so we have to sometimes kind of look at the different calculus that might be used for certain facilities, because otherwise if we just use enrollment, I think that's maybe how maybe many of our Southern students feel. Well, of course you guys are going to go make all this commotion about Simon Sanchez and the northern schools because they have larger populations. So it's real challenging though, because when it comes to trying to spread that dollar around, we do the same thing that you're suggesting is like, how do we make the justification? So I just wanted to say that on the economic development side, I'm happy if Mr. Meno can add to, but we have had a lot of those conversations. We definitely would appreciate as much support as possible. And I guess what I meant by support is even from a policy perspective to prioritize the use of Southern High School, auditorium for even government functions or other things that we can promote, because that would help, as partners to promote the use. Because, right now, Simon, I know Mr. Meno doesn't have a marketing team. He doesn't have a promotions team. And so, it's almost like you need that kind of operation to help, advertise the facility, negotiate and attract, uses. So whatever support we can get, I do think there is potential for that revenue generation. It's just, we might need just some more help and expertise to really pull that together.
If I may add, we currently have a board policy 620 that gives me procedures for the use of the facilities. It provides rates to include power, water, and space. And it does identify the fine arts theater as one of the parts where we can charge a rate of $500 plus 20% for admission. And that's also including power, separate rates for power and water.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't need to belabor the issue. Thank you very much, everyone.
No problem. Thank you, Senator Torres. All right. Before I allow Senator Moylan to close, I just have a few things I'd like to say myself. I do realize the importance of the Southern High School Auditorium. I've actually, I'm the president of the Inetnun Gif Pagu Cultural Dance Group, and we actually used the Southern High Auditorium several years ago. Time flies. I don't remember how long ago it was. Time flies, and I get more gray hair. So it's either 4 years ago or somewhere around that time. We had some pretty good dance festivals there at the Southern High Auditorium. And I thought, wow, what a great asset this is. What a beautiful auditorium. And the festivals went amazing. They were great festivals. Then a couple years after that festival, we brought out, maybe about 2 years ago or so, 2 to 3 years ago, we brought out another bunch of cultural dance groups to do another international dance festival together with our dance group. And the Southern Auditorium was closed. I mean, it was not available for use. And I can just tell you from my experience, we on the board of Inetnun Gif Pagu looked everywhere to try to find a suitable place for us to host this dance. We couldn't, there was nowhere. It's like the Southern High Auditorium or the Fine Arts old auditorium at UOG, which also needs an upgrade. I mean, that Fine Arts building in UOG is such an old auditorium there, and it's nowhere near as large or as nicely set up as the Southern High School Auditorium. So I saw firsthand how, because the auditorium was down, it just took that option away from us as a board, and we were scrambling, looking everywhere, and that's when I really realized we don't have very many of these types of venues on Guam. We just don't have it. So I definitely do see the importance in that auditorium, and I just want to thank the Southern High School and DOE for partnering with us on that several years ago to do we did a couple of shows there, actually. I think we did it more than once. And so I see firsthand how important that auditorium is. We just don't have that many venues like that on Guam. So that's all I wanted to add to the conversation, just from my point of view, with my personal experience with using the Southern High Auditorium. And with that, Senator Moylan, I'd like to allow you the opportunity now to say your closing statements on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the participants, the principals and vice principals, and GOE, the superintendent there, and all his staff. Is very helpful and informative. I thank my colleagues also for their questions. And I think we can make some positive changes on this in committee and hopefully move it forward for the betterment of this school. But most importantly, this bill is just about, at the end of the day, it's about the students. And we have an opportunity to help polish their gem of their facility with a public-private partnership. So I'm hoping we can move forward with this. I'll be working very closely with you, Mr. Chairman. So at that, I'd like to say go Dolphins, and thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. If there are no further questions or comments, we can go ahead and wrap this up. The committee will continue to accept written statements on today's hearing within 10 business days from today, which may be mailed to my office at 238 Archbishop Flores Street, Suite 906 at the DNA building in Hagåtña. You may also send your statements to us at Ridgell at guamlegislature.org, or you can send it by fax to 475-4768. Thank you all for your participation. This virtual public hearing is now adjourned. It is 10:53 a.m. Thank you everyone again for your participation.